to Material Musings, where the fabrics tell their tales. Eco-dyed colors from the garden, slow stitches where the heart exhales. Painting cloth and weaving stories, wall hangings blooming bright. Come create with Amanda, where your creativity takes flight.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Material Musings. I hope that you are well and that you are flourishing in your creative activities, and if you're just dipping your toe in, that you'll find something here that will encourage you and inspire you. And what I just suggest is that you go for it. You just, dip your toe in, try it, do it on a small scale. So if this is your first time here in this episode today, what we're going to be doing is looking at the aspect of adding, say, jewellery and beads to a creative project. And hopefully, if you are thinking of adding those things, recycling, not only the recycling part, but we've all got broken jewellery. We've all come across broken jewellery, and it's great to be able to use it in projects where you can. So there was one of my inspirations. I was doing it before I came across her work, but she inspires me even more, and this is Joyce Scott, and she does a lot of she not only does fibre arts with fabric and stuff, but she does a lot of beading. A lot of her sculptures are made from beads, and it's just like really amazing. And there's a couple of videos, one of them I saw, and she had this big bowl of just mixed size, mixed colors beads, and she's carefully seed beads, and then she was just you need a lot of patience for that, kind of delicately picking them up on the needle and then attaching them to the project. And these projects are just, some of them are really big, and so it does take time. So you may think to yourself, oh, I don't have time for that. And I said that about slow stitching and embroidery, and look where I am now, in the sense of I really do love adding them to the projects. And you'll see a lot of the ones I've done more recently, and as I was going through them I was thinking, wow, I've actually done quite a few with beading. I guess it's almost, I see the beads alongside, if I was say painting a picture, it would be the acrylics that I use, or just the mediums that I use. And so with the colours of the beads, they are part of the whole process. So not only with the stitching, with if I've painted the fabric, the textures of the fabric, the textures that I include, and then the beading, it's all part of, it becomes part of the finished product, or project rather. And I don't like referring to my pieces as products, even though you can go down that road, and yes, you're creating stuff which you may sell, you may not. But for me, the focus is about the therapeutic benefits. Obviously you have to pay your bills, but the therapeutic benefits of working on these pieces, and what you get from every material that you may touch, every the beads that I use, a lot of them are vintage and have come from many different sources. So what are the stories that are behind them? And it's really nice sometimes just to be sitting down working on these pieces and be wondering, what was that journey? Who made it? If it's like a wooden bead with lots of intricate details, and we're going to look at we're going to look at some, or if it's made of glass or metal or whatever it is, there's a story behind it, and it's what is that and how is that contributing to the finished piece. So today what we're going to do is look through some of the projects that have these elements, the beads, the mixed media pieces, and I'll explain how I attach these to the work. I'm not going to probably be able to actually do a demonstration this week, so I'll save that for next week. And what we'll also do at the end is just look through some of the I wanted to do like a random selection. I mean, I've got like selections of beads that and elements that I would go to, but there's not a random enough selection. The one that I've got are some of the beads that I've been gifted, have been sitting in my pile for a long time, and then have resurfaced. And so I thought it'd be nice that if I looked at that bead, what would I do with it and how would I attach it? And yeah, so we'll talk about that as well, and we'll look through some. We'll get some eye candy, yeah? So I'm going to go through the projects, explain some of the elements, and I'll try and mix it up as much as possible. The ones that I'm looking at on my desk so far have probably got a lot of beading, but it's just really nice to look at, and it's making me feel quite encouraged at the moment. Anyway, so let's get on and look at some of the projects. We'll look at some of the beading and how I would attach that to a project. Yeah, so for next week, I want to get a project that I want to work on anyway. I was going to give you a canvas and work on that, but you might as well work on something that you were going to work on anyway. So let us get started, and yeah, I hope you're inspired. If you've not yet subscribed, go on, tap the subscription, I don't know which side it's on. Let me think. Okay, yeah, it's probably over there, isn't it? Anyway, whatever, or down there. But I'll try and put as many details in the description as I can. There are some of the pieces that I've got a course for, and so if you're interested in the course, I'll put it down there. It's called Stitched Folks, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. And you know, if you started working on fabric and textiles, or and are starting to add additional elements, beading, whatever, fabric, fibers, jewelry, it's an exciting time. And if you've got any questions, do leave them in the comments. Just say hello, say where you're coming from. So let's get on, and yeah, I'll see you at the table. Hello, look what we have here. So we've got quite a few here on the table. So I brought these together because a lot of these are fairly similar in terms of they're using beading, and there is a particular technique that you would do to add the beads, and we'll come in, shall we? Yeah, oops, that was a bit too fast. Okay, so this particular one combines felting here, and then we've got the slow stitch. It's on a canvas, and some of these I've still got work to do. I haven't yet decided, you know, it's that last bit. Do you want to have a border, or, you know, do you want to add more stitching or whatever? So I haven't yet decided with this one, but as you can see, there's beads that go down in this direction and that direction across the neck. And so that technique is literally you're just threading the beads onto the thread and then exiting where you want it to exit. So I've pulled my thread up, attach the beads onto the thread, and then put my needle back in there. And what you have to do with this kind of thing is to then secure it, and I'll show you on a bigger piece that has not yet been secured, so we're going to need to come out. So like for this particular one, you can see well, it's actually just this side and at the bottom here. I've attached these here. So all that means is that once I've thread the beads on, I would come back with my thread, and I go up from the back and come over and just loop over this line. And I'd probably do it every 3 beads, every 3 or 4 beads, just to keep it secure. And what you don't want to do is just use one long thread. You want to kind of, so just in case the thread, you know, for whatever reason frayed and got cut, all of the beads wouldn't then all come off, but you know, it might just be a few beads. So you secure them in that way, and once they're secure, you know, they don't move around. Now, there isn't the likelihood of, depending on how you handle the pieces, if you add them to a frame, especially these kinds of pieces with additional embellishments, then you're more likely to protect it better. And then obviously stitch pieces or eco-dyed pieces, you don't want them to be in direct sunlight, so where you store them, where they're hung as well, also can impact on whether, you know, the fabric kind of fades or the threads become brittle over time, depending on what thread you're using. And I would suggest, if you're then creating pieces that either you do want to sell or you want for longevity, I would suggest either way you get some, you know, a good thread to use, because then you know that it's going to last. You don't just get, you know, the ones that they use in these little cheap sewing kits. Don't use those kind of threads. If you're messing about, that's different, but if you want it for, you know, art projects and things like that, you want them to last. And so that's how these are attached. You add the beads and then you go back and you make sure that every 3 or 4 beads that it's secure. And so we can see, like in something like this one, because it was just 3 or 4 beads, like where it was 4 beads, I did it every 2, but where it's gone down to 3, it's just as is, because it's pretty tight anyway. So I combine the, I have been combining felted pieces. I love this one. And then I decided to, with this one in particular, I need to do another one. I was just experimenting. So again, this is the time, you know, if you're not familiar or starting out, you know, just experiment and see how you get on. But I did the felting and then I stitched it. So I want to do a few more. So these particular ones use fabric, and we've got the fabric behind here, slow stitching, and then I've added the beading detail at the end, so that, you know, if you need to make any adjustments, like this particular one, I've added it, but I haven't yet finished securing these beads, so that's what I'm going to have to go back and do, go in and secure them, and see if there's anything else. What I want to do is bring these to a close so that they're all ready. They're done on a canvas, so they'll all need their you know, the backing bit, and I do like this actually, so I might leave it open, but they need the bit where you can hang them, or they can be leaned up, you know, it's up to you. But again, with these kind of the fabric pieces, I think they are better if they're framed, because then it just protects them. Okay, so more beading. So this is a lot more beading. But yeah, you couldn't get away with leaving these out, or else they'd be moving all over the place. But it's, yeah, just a good idea to make sure that you secure them all. Yeah. This one is part of a course that I created called Stitch Folks, and there's 2 within the course. And so they're very similar in terms of, you know, like I've beaded the hair at the back, we've got beaded earrings, neck detail, and for this one I've beaded her lips, and you know, just and I've just followed the line. So where you're stitching, again, you just take your time, you add a couple of beads. You don't have to, or if you're confident, like what I did, I got my thread and added the beads and put them in this shape, and then I went back and stitched so that they would be secure. With the canvas, you want to be careful all of the holes that you make. Yeah, you don't want it, and you can see at the back. So these are all of the holes I made to secure some of the beads, and they're not quite seed beads. I think there would be number 8 from memory. That's what I remember. And in this one, like, you've got the circular look as well. So again, you would add all the beads on, make the shape that you want, and then go back and secure it into that shape. But again, it's experimenting. For this one, I wanted you to see the background, because all of the background has been stitched with fabric, slow stitched, whereas this particular one, the background had just been painted, so I wanted to add that. But again, I've still just got some bits and pieces to add. I'm thinking of adding the binding like this to this one. I may change the colour of this. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. And then we've got, on both of them, we've got this. Let me just turn it this way. So you've got the bit where I've added a different type of bead to the necklace. And you can either add the thread through and attach it to the fabric, but what I did was I pushed the needle through, and then I added a bead, pushed it through a bead, and then took my needle back through the main shape. I'll come in so that you can see. But yeah, next week we'll do all of the, I'll show you examples in real time. Yeah, so came up with the needle, came up through the bead, and then I brought the needle back through, not the bead, but this main one, and then through the canvas and tied it off. Yeah, and this one was done in the same way, but with a smaller bead. Okay. Which, I mean, it's really it's fun when you can, you know, take a look at some of the things that you've been admiring in your stash, and when you can find a home for them, that's a really good feeling as well. Okay, so that's those two. The beads, let me show you these ones. The beads can be, again, placed in a variety of different ways. So think about, you know, maybe a shape, like I did this for the tree that the owl is sitting on, did the sun. So again, put it in the shape that you want, add all the beads, put it in the shape that you want, and then carefully attach them. We've got the wing from the bird, and I've also used it as the outline. And yeah, you know, it can set a project off. I was experimenting. So again, this is from when I was doing Making Zen. It's an online course. And we have this little one. So the owl, and I've used the beads as an outline for the owl's shape. Yeah. So that's those three again. So be combining the beading with fabric and other elements. Okay, so I wanted to show you some wall hangings that then incorporate additional things as well. So here we have this would have been a necklace. It's an old necklace that I wasn't then able to wear. So it's got beads on the end, because obviously these were connected, and it had there's others that is part of this necklace, and I just took these off. And I've just gone through it's almost like a I'll just show you. Yeah, so if you can see the end there, I've just taken my needle and attached it here with the thread in the same there. Because it's quite stiff, I haven't needed to attach it, it just stays there. And then I've added the thread here, and just there where the metal bead is joining to the metal bit here. And so yeah, again, as long as you use the thread that is, you know, archival, then you should be fine. And then we've just got, this is wood from the garden, moringa wood that I've used. Right, so down at the bottom now, we've got a broken jewelry piece. Yeah. So you can see, you know, it's got kind of holes in and things like that. And so all you would do, I've used black thread, and I've added them to the corners here. So anywhere there's like a little corner, but you can see that thread there. So I would just take my thread and make a little attachment here, go under and through, and attach it there. And it's pretty secure once you do it on the four corners. It makes it pretty secure, and I've done one here as well. And then I've gone in and attached beads and done the same thing in terms of joining them to the fabric. Didn't it look like it was just as I was going back, it was shining? Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, so this one, we've got I was going to say ordinary beads, but they're just, I think these are ceramic beads actually. But the way they've been attached, because of their shape, let's come in. Sorry, it's like in and out. Okay, so as you can see with these beads, they're so pretty, aren't they? It's like made from sculpty, like that you heat in the oven. But basically we've gone up through the bead and taken the red bead as well, and then you go back into the bead and then you attach it, yeah? And here we have a metal piece, but that was almost like a bead as well, so it was from a necklace, and I just added the 2 beads on either end, but where it's secure is here and here, yeah, so there as well, and I probably would have gone in there. I may have got, no, I wouldn't have gone in there, so I would have come up, added the 2 beads, added this on, added the 2 beads, and then gone out again, but then I would come back and go across here with the thread, go underneath and go across there with the thread, and you can see there, yeah. And then these beads are almost like it was, you know, like for jewelry, but I added it here and did the same kind of thing. You know, they would be the thing that would be at, say, the end of jewelry. I'll see if I can see any, and maybe even also look at how I would dismantle something, because that's always, you know, if you're finding these pieces, it's nice to be able to build up your reserve of embellishments, and then you can add them to projects. Okay, before we go to this one, let me just show you these. Yeah, well, it's mainly this one. So we've got thicker beads, we've got, again, a jewelry piece, and we've got jewelry piece here, and so this is what I was talking about. So we've got an example right in front of us, so we need to come in, and then we've got beading on this piece of fabric. So let's just have a look around this one. So the kind of wooden kind of beads that I was talking about is like these ones. This was from a necklace or a bracelet, and so I've just made the most of the holes that are there and attached the thread, attached it through and just secured it, yeah. I'm not sure, yeah, you can see, but you'd have to look carefully. So one of the things that you would do when you're deciding on, you know, the threads, we've got some, it's broken jewelry, somebody threw it out because these missing bits, I'm sure I could fill them. You can either fill them with resin, find another piece of jewelry or element similar to this, and I'm sure I've got it, and then you can add those in there. But if you look along here, I've got some, it's like a I'm trying to think of the name that they call it, but it's like a pearlized cotton, and it's, because it's got a shine to it, you don't notice it from afar that there are these stitches, and I've just gone down as the middle of this bit. I think it's like a bunch of grapes, so yeah, just gone down the middle. And let's just move down here. So this is what I was talking about, those elements that you can use flat, but this is how they would come in a necklace. This was a necklace that I decided to take a part of it and use the beads on here. Right, what I've done is taken a bit of metal and done the end there, and then added them back on, and so they're attached here. There's thread here, and then I would have gone, as you can see, it's fairly sturdy, so I would have gone in between each of these and secured it with the thread. Okay, let's come out a little bit so that you can see. And then the other thing to do is keep a lookout for things like the sari fibres, because some of those are really heavily embellished with beads and decoration. So this is one of those pieces, and there's loads of beads on there, and you could replicate it. We've got sequins and we've got seed beads, and so you would just, you know, takes a while, and it's quite fine fabric, but you would just take your time, thread on some sequins, thread on the bead, and then go back into the fabric in the same way that we would normally, and then you just change up some of the beads or create a pattern, the kind of pattern you desire. Yeah, so that's that one. Okay, so what we have in these three is kind of like a selection, a range of different things added to each piece. What kind of unifies them is that they've each got this embellished piece on the front of them, and so I can show you how they're attached. And all I've done is incorporate the thread. I've got a silver thread, and they're just attached on either end. So this is actually a plastic post, and I make different ones. I'm sure in one of my Material Musings I shared what it is. It's that insert for the fabric bandages, and over the years I've just found different uses for them. So this is wrapped in burlap and painted, and so that would be going on a project. This is the same burlap, but it's not yet been painted, and this one is wrapped, painted, and embellished with like a metallic paint. And so just attaching them either end and attaching them to the project. And this again gives you an example of, if you've got beads, you don't necessarily want to break them up, they can be added, and you can coordinate with the threads that you're using to attach them. And then this one has attachments at the bottom, so with the beads. And so with this, I would have, like you're threading an earring, used the findings, the wires, and then stitched them to the project here. That's why they're slightly bent, but they can straighten out and be hung. Yeah, so that's that one. This one has got similarly a lot of elements that have been added, stitched. We've got some here that are attached to fabric, like these elements. There's no holes in them, so I would have attached them to fabric using a fabric glue, and then that fabric would have been stitched to this main piece. And again, at the bottom, you can see where the post has been added and secured. And it's the same with this one, where we've got, you know, a range of different methods for attaching the beads, seed beads. Where there's holes in the, whether it's jewelry or, you know, these things, They're like, again, it was like jewellery, but they've got holes in them where they were attached together. And so you use those holes. And again, you know, attaching the elements makes your project, you know, gives your project a specific, you know, a different look. And we'll just do maybe a couple more. Well, we'll do these two and then the last one that these. So with these ones, again, a wide selection of different beads. We've got cowrie shells at the edge here. Again, find where the hole is and use a thread in the colour corresponding to the work that you're doing, or black, you know, but it then makes it difficult to see, like with our thread, we've got it here. And going through the top there. And then this particular one, I didn't even know what it was, but it was like amongst all of this jewellery and it's wrapped in fabric. So again, I just used my thread, it's very similar colour to it, and stitched through it and attached it. More jewellery that's just attached. So you find the natural place that you would attach it, and you know, sometimes you might have to wrap them in. So just like these pieces, I'll show you this one. So if I was going to attach this, I would use the fact that I've got thread on it, the burlap, and I'd go through there with the needle and attach it. So yeah, shells would be the same. You know, you might have to wrap them if you have got the equipment to bore out a fine hole in them. Then with a lot of some of the other shells that don't have any holes in, that would help. And then this one again is like jewelry that I've used and attached, and then at the bottom again a larger piece of jewelry. And this one was a brooch. So I've pinned it to this piece, so it's unless somebody actually takes it off, it's not going to come off. And you can see the entirety of it here. So it's got the wooden bit there, and then on there I've done the wire and added beads as well. Yeah, so one more. Got one more. Now I really like these ones with my clay faces, so let's have a look closely. Right, so my face is attached to, it's made from air-dried clay, but I attached it to fabric and then did the headdress and everything, and a base bit. And then all I've done is then stitched it to the fabric of choice. Yeah. So as long as you've attached it, it would have been glued to the initial fabric, and then I've added this fabric as well. This is Sea Island cotton actually from my garden, and then we've got the beading there. And then just a range of other beads and embellishments on the piece. Okay, so there's just a few of the projects with beads on, so it is quite a few. So let's look at some of the random ones and I'll see how, well, not random ones, but the ones that are right beside me, like saying, oh, let's have a look at us as well. Okay, so let's have a look at those. Okay, so this is just a few of the things that I've picked out just as an example, and let's just do a couple of shells as well. So we'll come in and we'll look at these things, and so this is just a really a brief example of some of the elements that I might use and how would I use them. So we're going to need to come in quite tight, and then I'll just quickly go through some of the pieces. So we'll start where we're at here. So we've got the shells. So if I were to use these, probably on a really larger piece, not one of these smaller pieces, but I need to find a way to either drill a hole basically. I thought of wrapping it, but I would probably drill a hole at the top, so I do need one of those fine equipments that drill holes. So maybe there's a trip to the craft store coming up just by looking at these things. So a lot of the things that you would generally buy, I guess see in your craft store, would usually have holes already in them, or if it's broken jewelry, it would be you know, like this one. This was an earring, but it's got a hole in it already, so you could either use that hole, or because it's quite thin wood, you could add some additional holes if you wanted to stitch it to a project. Things like with this is a little hat I had, like I've got a set of them, so I've decorated them with this on there. But again, if I wanted to attach it, I would use my thread, go up into it through the fabric, and then add a bead. So I might add beads around the edge, and that's how I would attach it. So when I come up, I add the bead, go back in a different spot but just quite close, and then push it back down into the fabric, and that would keep it, and you wouldn't have any, you know, the thread marks on there. These were ones that I made. I've got a few of them, and initially I made them so that they could be attached to fabric, but then when I started working on them and doing both sides, I was just like, no, I want them to be necklaces. So that's what's happening with these. But if I had decided I would if I had decided to add them to a finished piece, I would, this is fabric, so I would have added a hole through the fabric and attached it in that way. It might not necessarily be able to go in the bottom bit, but the top bit where there's just some excess fabric here, that's a prime spot for adding the thread. And maybe next time when I make some more of these, what I do is I make allowances that I would be stitching something through it. Yeah. Let's see, these are quite large beads, but again they've already got holes in, so these would make nice additions. If you had more of these, you could do a nice pattern dependent again on the fabric itself. And this one is similar to the this one, where it's got the hole already and it's sitting fairly flattish, but it could be nice on a piece of work. And I've got two of these. Some of these is from a fellow artist who shared some of her embellishments, Sherry Weston, so do go and look at some of her pieces. She's got some amazing pieces of art as well. And right, so here are these bits that I used to experiment with. So I normally go with like the flatter beads. So again, something like these wooden, they're wooden. I would come up, have a bead up there, you know, sitting on top, a smaller one, and then go back into the fabric, and that would attach them. And then you've got, so if you decided something like this with these elements on, now this, I'm thinking I could turn into, like, I'm not keen on what's already on there. So what I would do is take these off. I'm thinking of turning it back into a bracelet, or using it with coordinated beads for a particular project. So I would just take them off, reattach what I want, and then to attach it to the fabric, you've got all the links there. So probably every two, I would attach the thread and attach it to the fabric, bring it up and go back into the fabric. Similar with something like this. And for something like this, so again, this is one of Sherry's creations. If you could fit your finger through it, could be like a ring. It could be a ring, like, or something like that. I don't know. I was looking to see if my finger could fit through, but I'm not going to force it. But like this, you know, if you have like a shell that is too big to kind of stitch on, you know, using these, but what you do is, like with this, you add, this is a crocheted element. So once I've crocheted it, what I would do is attach it this way. So have it in the, where, however I want it to sit. So if I wanted it to sit like this, and then I would then put the needle through the crocheted bit. So that would be attached. And then attach these other bits as well. So it's useful to add, you know, add crochet, add it to a fabric, and then you can stitch it onto your piece. But with the crochet and going round it like this, you add that other element that makes it look really nice. And you could go in, let's come in for a little bit. You could go in and then add seed beads to this whole area before you stitch it. Yeah? So you've got this nice element of the shell, and then you've got all of the fibers and then the beads as well that would just hang. So that's another nice element to work with. And then it's just experimenting, you know, experimenting with the size. These are fabric beads that I made, but they're hard, wrapped in fabric, wrapped in rope, and then you could have bigger ones. I think these are ceramic ones that if you know, you want to add larger pieces, you can. These I probably wouldn't add to a fabric piece unless it was, you know, quite large, because they're quite heavy and weighty. I might take these. I've got some necklaces similar to this pattern, so I might, it would have been nice as earrings, but they're quite heavy. They're too heavy for me to wear as earrings, but I really like these. And it's just to really experiment, like, you know, look at what you've got. You know, if you had these, we've got the cowrie shell, and again you've got the bit at the top and you've got a bit at the bottom that you can attach it to the piece of fabric. And then just look at the other beads that you may have. You know, use the seed beads for attaching to larger beads, and they literally just go you know, like that. Again, dependent on the pattern, dependent on the type of fabric that you've got, that you're working with, and, you know, the message that you're sending. But the element of adding the, like a crocheted element, gives you additional flexibility to attach a whole wide range of pieces. And then you've got sequins as well, that you can maybe, you know, use them with the seed beads as well. A shape like this, again, I would come in and go to the smallest bit and connect them here, and that would keep it flat. And yeah, and just some bits you can't because it's just too big, or, you know, there isn't a natural, like this one, what I would do is find, say, some metal beads. So I would put it on the project like this, and then I would find the two ends that I could add to it. So maybe something like this, and I'd add it to the end. Or maybe I want like a round bead and add the round beads to the end, and I would then stitch in between these beads here. That's one way. Or the other way is add a metal piece. So you've got a metal, and then add some extra beads to it, so it's probably about this big, and then I would start stitching every 2 beads until I got to here, and do a stitch there, and then it's going to be nicely secure. So this is just a selection. You can make your own. I've made these out of air dried clay, some hearts, and they're going to be attached to some projects. The next time I make them, I would probably add more than one hole so that I can stitch it directly like that. But for now, these ones are okay. And yeah, I hope that you get to experiment, and that you've seen from the fabric pieces that you've seen elements that you might try and use, and just experiment. If you've got any questions, any more questions, don't hesitate to ask me, and I look forward to seeing what you do.